Al Jazeera Podcasts.
I'm David Enders, and this is The Take. As the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran continues, we're bringing you this update. U.S. President Donald Trump announced a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz after talks between Iran and the U.S. failed to produce an agreement. Israel continued to attack Lebanon ahead of planned talks between those countries on Tuesday. Today is Monday, April 13. It has been 45 days since the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran, killing at least 2,000 people. Following President Trump's announcement, the U.S. military said it would prevent any shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz as of 10 a.m. Washington time on Monday. Al Jazeera's Heidi Castro reported from Washington, D.C.
After U.S.-Iranian talks in Islamabad failed to produce a deal on any of Washington's demands, the Trump administration decided to escalate the crisis once again, announcing a U.S. naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, first described by President Trump as targeting any and all ships trying to enter or leave the strait, and later defined by U.S. Central Command as only impacting vessels destined to or from Iranian ports. Iran has refused to reopen Hormuz to international shipping until there is a final peace deal, choking off 20% of the world's supply of crude oil. The weekend negotiations in Pakistan were the highest-level face-to-face talks between U.S. and Iranian leadership in nearly 5 decades. Trump said the meeting went well, but that Iran refused to give up its nuclear program, the only point that mattered, he said. And as the U.S. delegation flew back to Washington empty-handed, Trump returned to his threats, writing, "Any Iranian who fires at us or at peaceful vessels will be blown to hell, and that U.S. forces will finish up the little that is left of Iran."
Iran's government met the threat of the strait's closure by reiterating some of the demands it brought to the table this weekend, including the right to charge ships passing through Hormuz and reparations for the war. Al Jazeera's Tohid Asadi reported from Tehran.
We just received this statement from the headquarters of the Joint Military Command, Khatam al-Anbiya, coming out with a very strong message of warning, which seems to be in response to the recent threats by the U.S. President Donald Trump. And the message says, if the security of the ports of the Islamic Republic in the waters of Persian Gulf and Sea of Oman is threatened, no port in Persian Gulf and Sea of Oman will remain secure. Also, they are referring to a concept that we hear time and again from the Iranian side, saying that the Iranian stance is on the basis of security for either everyone or no one across the region, specifically Persian Gulf and Sea of Oman. Also, there is this very strong statement in that regard, saying that the imposition of restrictions by the criminal United States on maritime traffic in international waters is an illegal act and constitutes piracy.
Israel continued to strike Lebanon on Monday, ahead of scheduled diplomatic talks in Washington between the two countries on Tuesday. Its soldiers were also attempting to capture the southern Lebanese town of Bint Jbeil. Al Jazeera's Heidi Pett reported from Beirut.
These talks will take place at the ambassadorial level, that is the Lebanese and the Israeli ambassadors to the US. They held a phone call on Friday night Beirut time and set up this meeting for Tuesday. Now, shortly after that call, the Lebanese president's office put out a statement saying that the two had agreed to discuss announcing a ceasefire. But then shortly after that, the Israeli ambassador put out his own statement saying that no, a ceasefire with Hezbollah had not been discussed. And so the gulf between those two statements gives you some indication of their positions. Israel maintaining that its war and Hezbollah will continue, whereas it's willing to engage in direct talks with the Lebanese state, which is not technically a party to this conflict. Israel says that it's going after Hezbollah, but in fact the toll on civilians here in Lebanon has been extreme. But also we've seen direct targeting by the Israelis of Lebanese state infrastructure, whether that is the bridges across the Litani River that have been systematically destroyed over this last 6 weeks of war, or indeed an airstrike, a direct hit on a government building in the town of Nabatea, which killed 13 members of the state's security forces. Hormuz. So the context there of engaging in these direct talks while state security, to say nothing of civilians, are being targeted by Israel has not been received well by all quarters here in Lebanon. There's been protests. Hezbollah has said that the government shouldn't be making free concessions. They've said that they will fight to their last breath.
And that's The Take for Monday, April 13. Please join us again tomorrow. This episode was produced by me, David Enders. Our sound designer is Alex Roldan. Alexandra Locke is The Take's executive producer.